Welcome to CBS This Morning. It is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. I'm Gail King. That's Anthony Mason. That's Tony DeCopel. The CDC's new guidance for fully vaccinated Americans give us a glimpse at the path back towards normalcy. Our Dr. David Agus will break it all down for us, what it's okay and how to stay safe from COVID-19.
A growing crisis at the border as thousands of children arrive alone, hoping for a better life in the U.S. Why critics say the Biden administration is unprepared and how it's responded.
And the shockwaves of Harry and Meghan's explosive interview with Oprah spread after it airs in Britain for the first time. Why it's being called the worst crisis for Buckingham Palace in decades.
So far, no response from the palace, though. But first, here's today's eye-opener. It's your world in 90 seconds.
The palace must be really scrambling today.
Meghan came out all guns blazing.
She's given the Oscar-winning performance of her life.
As more details from this Oprah interview are revealed, reaction is pouring in from all around the world.
You continue to trash her.
Okay, I'm done with this.
No.
Sorry, you can trash me, baby, not mine.
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry.
According to the CDC, fully vaccinated people can now gather indoors without masks in certain settings.
People can finally start seeing what a life without a mask might look like.
Documents obtained by CBS News show a record number of unaccompanied minors flooding into the U.S.
The humane and moral approach is to keep these kids safe.
A judge has permanently dismissed charges against the boyfriend of Breonna Taylor, accused of the attempted murder of a police officer.
All that
Les Miles is out as football head coach at Kansas because of sexual misconduct allegations during his tenure at LSU.
and all that matters.
Harry and Meghan gave their big interview to Oprah. Everybody's talking about it.
Apparently 17 million people saw it.
I am here for it.
On CBS This Morning.
In the interview, Harry and Meghan said that they secretly got married 3 days before their public wedding. A public wedding I attended. Yeah. And I gotta tell you, I want my toaster back. That was a wedding present, not a 3 days after the wedding present.
This morning's eye-opener is presented by Progressive, making it easy to bundle insurance.
James Corden, he was there. You can tell James Corden lost weight. You can look at the picture from
That's
the
right,
wedding,
yeah.
and I was like, he's doing great.
Yeah.
But he was definitely there, and he's responding to Meghan saying that they got married 3 days before.
Right,
Yeah.
which is a day 2 revelation here.
Yes.
We're still talking about it.
Still talking about it. I think we're going to be talking about it for a while. We welcome you to CBS This Morning, and that's where we begin. There was new fallout from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's incendiary interview with Oprah. It aired in the UK for the first time last night to a sharply divided response. The headlines in the papers this morning described the worst crisis for the British monarchy in decades, and some of the same tabloids that Harry and Meghan blame in part for their departure continue to criticize him right now.
Harry and Meghan's allegations of racism are raising the stakes in how this all plays out, along with questions about the monarchy's handling of mental health. Holly Williams is outside Buckingham Palace for us. Holly, good morning to you. Any response yet?
Good morning. Well, it's been almost a day and a half since the interview aired in the US. 12 million people watched it on television here last night in a country of just under 70 million. We've still had no comment from Buckingham Palace, but one of Meghan's family members has been speaking out.
When they decide to talk to me, I'll stop talking to the press.
It's been seen as a real attack on the monarchy driven by your daughter and...
Britain woke up this morning to find Thomas Markle on television. He's Meghan's father, the same man who handed over a letter from his daughter to a British tabloid newspaper. Interviewed by Piers Morgan, former tabloid editor.
They went way over the top with these stories with Oprah and should have waited, considering the Queen's age.
Harry and Meghan claim one factor that drove them to America in the first place was the British tabloid media.
With that relationship and that control and the fear by the UK tabloids, it's a toxic environment.
An environment the Duchess says drove her to contemplate suicide. But for the royal family, the most explosive, most damaging allegation was that at least one member of the family had concerns about the colour of their son's skin.
There are several conversations.
There's a conversation with you?
With Harry.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Oprah says Harry told her it wasn't the Queen or her husband, Prince Philip. Journalist Afia Adam told us the accusation of racism at the very pinnacle of British society is hurtful.
What I didn't expect with racism to be so blatant and so insidious and so systemic. But let's be honest, we have this kind of racism in Britain. I shouldn't have been surprised.
But will this bombshell interview spark a change or even renew a debate in this country about racism and the power wielded by Britain's tabloid media?
The British media is reporting this morning that the royal family has been holding crisis talks following Harry and Meghan's interview. Anthony.
Holly Williams at Buckingham Palace in London. Thank you, Holly. Throughout the interview, Harry and Meghan said the palace did not support them in their fight against what they called false stories in the tabloids. They said that if they had received support, they would have remained as full-time royals.
It was only once we were married and everything started to really worsen that I came to understand that not only was I not being protected, but that they were willing to lie to protect other members of the family, but they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband.
Let's go now to Roya Nika, who's also at Buckingham Palace. She's a royal correspondent for the Sunday Times and has covered the royal family for more than a decade. Roya, good morning. As we mentioned, we have not heard from the palace yet in terms of a response from this interview in any form yet. What should we make of that?
My understanding from palace sources is that there's not going to be a knee-jerk reaction from Buckingham Palace to this. The Queen, the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Cambridge, other senior royals are hunkered down. They are discussing with their aides how best to respond. They want to take their time to consider these very serious concerns and allegations that have been raised. And when they do respond, they'll have given it an enormous amount of thought. But they're not going to be pushed into putting out a quick response. It will be considered in their own time.
How damaging do you think this is to the royal family?
It's certainly a crisis. I think, we've seen from the difference in response in the United States and over here, this is something that's proving extremely divisive. And I think, that the allegations and claims and statements that Harry and Meghan have made paint a picture of a royal family, with some areas that are very difficult, with difficult things to address. But I think what we must do is wait and see what the palace come out and say. That interview, and I've watched it twice now, has thrown up a lot more questions than answers.
Roya, Prince Harry and Meghan told Oprah they were fearful of the tabloids and talked a lot about the relationship between the royal family and the tabloids. How would you describe that relationship?
Like
it's
Oprah and the
I don't work
tabloids.
for a tabloid, I work for the Sunday Times. Many of my colleagues do work for tabloids, and that description that Harry described of members of the royal family being afraid of the tabloids and compromising themselves in order to please the tabloids, that is not something that I recognise in the more than 10 years I've been working on the beat. I have to say I found that description a little bit incredible, if I'm honest.
So you don't think they had reason to be fearful of the tabloids?
I have never known, in my time as a royal correspondent, any of the members of the royal family changing their position on things or granting more access to tabloid reporters in order to keep things away. It just doesn't work like that.
But Meghan certainly received a lot of negative coverage from the tabloids.
And I don't dispute that, she did, but all members of the royal family have come under really heavy fire when they've joined. If you think about the Duchess of Cambridge, she had a lot of negative criticism. I take the point about Meghan feeling there was a difference in the coverage of her, and in some elements of the media, that is absolutely true. She did come under fire, and a lot of it was sometimes a little bit close to the bone. But I think we mustn't just think that only Meghan was targeted in terms of tabloid coverage. That's not the case.
Roya Nika at Buckingham Palace, thank you. We'll have you back in the next hour to get your take on Meghan and Harry's allegations of racism. That's coming up in the 8 o'clock hour.
31 million people and counting have been fully vaccinated in America, and we are now getting some new guidelines from the CDC on how to ease back into normal life. So here they are.